Welcome to the Produce on Purpose podcast, where we experience life being the real you. I'm your host, Randy Adkins, and today we have a guest, Josh Flower. He's a B2B sales professional who's closed millions of dollars worth of deals over his 20-year career. He recently launched a coaching practice, and his program teaches sales, mindset, total life improvement skills. Josh's specialty is helping his clients align their thoughts and actions with the lives they truly want. Josh, thanks for joining us on the Produce on Purpose podcast today. I am so excited to have you on. How are you today?
I'm doing great, Randy. Thanks so much for having me on. Excited to be here.
Yeah, so let's start off with just a quick question about your journey. If you can share with our audience a little bit about who you are and what your message is and kind of what you want to cover today.
Yeah, that would be great, Randy. So, if we think back to early life, I was never a good student in school, and I was always someone that felt like a little bit like a passenger in life. And when I started my career after college, I wasn't sure what I wanted to do, and I bounced around different jobs that weren't really aligned for me. I discovered sales in my mid-20s and got into that profession and realized this was actually my calling, or so I thought. And I embarked on a really successful 20-plus year career. I'm actually coming up on 25 years as a professional salesperson now. And as you mentioned, selling B2B software and technology solutions to businesses. Very satisfying career. And I really learned, going through that portion of my life and my career, how much the effort that we put forth and how much positive mindset can play a role in our success. But I got to the point, and I think probably like a lot of your audience, you get to a point in your life where you think, is this it? Am I just good at my job? Is that what life is all about? And I realized, no, I've learned a lot in my life and in my career that I can pass along to others. And that's what got me thinking about coaching, which is an unusual change because I am successful in my career, but I'm really interested in passing on what I know, Randy.
Yeah, thank you for sharing a little bit about your journey and kind of who you are. And, we all get to a place where our vocation and what we do, we feel like there just needs to be a little more to our lives. And so at this moment, if you just give us a glimpse into what do you describe as being someone who is a happy person, and how do you kind of get there?
That's a great question. I think that being a happy person means finding a way to have gratitude for what you have in this life. And I'm someone that went through and has experienced a lot of pain in my life, like physical pain. So I had a debilitating back injury. I herniated a couple of discs when I was a young man in my early 20s and didn't heal properly. And I went through close to 30 years of pain and suffering and not being able to sleep comfortably and waking up with chronic pain every day. But somehow I still kept a smile on my face because I was grateful to be alive. I was grateful for the things that I did have, a beautiful wife and family, a nice house, a good career. And so I would say for anyone, the key to being happy is trying to put your finger on the things that you are grateful for, even if everything isn't perfect. It never will be perfect. But if you can get past some of the things that might be a reason to complain or not have gratitude in your heart and identify those things that do give you those feelings, that's the way to go.
Yeah, a little bit of focus on the things that really do bring you happiness or joy. And I think sometimes we may not even seek to ask ourselves that question of, hey, how do you do that? How do you kind of get to that place? So You're dealing with a lot of different people and you're doing coaching as you're going through. What are some of the number one issues that you find that people are running into that are asking you for coaching that you would have never thought of just doing business and you're going through and being a coach?
Yeah, it started out with the idea that I'd pass along the sales skills that I've accumulated and acquired in my career. But what I've really realized, Randy, is that most of us are looking for satisfaction in this life. right? We're looking to be happy and satisfied with our lives. But unfortunately, life is set up in a very unusual way. So often the things that give us immediate satisfaction are not the things that actually contribute to our long-term contentment and happiness. So these would be like vices or, things like time wasting, right? Getting sucked into our phones or watching too much Netflix. All of the sort of pleasure and comfort seeking activities that, frankly, humans are wired to want to acquire, because up until recently life was difficult, and so if you could find some comfort, some entertainment, some satisfaction, that was a good thing. But it sort of undermines people in the modern world because we're too lazy, right? We're too satisfied all the time, and what we're realizing is that doesn't actually lead to the contentment that we were looking for. So that's what I've really uncovered, is what people need help with is learning how to introduce some of the more difficult things that actually build us long-term in our lives and give us the longer-term contentment. But in order to get those, we need to sacrifice sometimes our short-term comfort and our short-term pleasure.
I like that. And, you mentioned the immediate nature of kind of getting a response from something. I always think of food as like, man, I really want to get that immediate comfort sensation from whether it's the chips or the ice cream or whatever it is.
Yes.
I need it like right now. And you do get it. However, we end up saying it's only short-lived in what we end up doing. So how do we start to move in a direction where we're no longer just seeking those things that are short term, but maybe we end up with something that is longer term? What are some ways you would say we start that process?
That's a great question. And I just want to say that I think food is actually one of the most challenging arenas for people to get a good relationship with, because we have to eat. You don't have to smoke. You don't need to drink alcohol, but you do need to eat every day. And so if you don't have a great relationship with food, that's a real challenge. So I think, number one, we need to be patient with one another and realize that this is a real challenge area. We need to be patient with ourselves as well. If we're someone that's suffered with weight issues, and I did for many years in my life, let's be patient with those folks. But this is sort of the framework that I introduce to my clients. So what we want to do is start by assessing your capacity to keep promises to yourself. If you were my client, that's what I'd say is, what kind of disciplines do you have in your life? Are there any? Right? So if you've got a discipline like you wake up early in the morning or you work out consistently, then that's great. That's a good starting point. But generally speaking, what we want to do are introduce good, healthy habits in a way that we can gradually build them into someone's life over time. So we wouldn't want to start on the first day like, you've got to get your diet in check, you've got to work out, you've got to go to bed early, wake up early, give up alcohol. We wouldn't do that all at once. We would pick one that we could realistically introduce and get implemented, and then go through a 2 to 4 week period where we stick to it and implement that. Then we move on to the next and the next. And what this will do, not only change someone's life by introducing healthy habits, but more importantly, build up the self-trust that people need so that they can start to believe that, hey, when I make a decision, like I'm going to make a change in my life, I actually see it through. For so many of us, and I think again with the diet, right? So many people have tried and failed at diet so many times that they almost don't believe they can do it. And that's not a good way to go into it. We want you feeling like, yes, I'm the type of person that can accomplish this. And so we build up that self-belief, that self-trust over time, Randy.
Yeah, that sounds like a very good concept. I also talk about that as well, as like small things end up becoming big things if you continue to do that over time. So, all right, Josh, I'm one of your clients. I'm coming in and I'm telling you, Josh, I want to make that $1 million this year. I just feel like I don't have enough time. What do you tell me?
Yeah, the time thing, right? So
yeah.
And hey, guess what? I've been in that boat. I think maybe the majority of your listeners and viewers have been in that boat as well. And here's the thing that I've learned in my career, okay? So I'm in the type of job that I get paid based on what I'm able to produce. So it's like a performance-based income model, right? And so the first thing I learned getting into sales is I need to work harder than I was working in my previous jobs. But as I've gone through this close to 25-year career, I've continued to learn that I can work more efficiently, more effectively. I can work faster. I can get more done in a day. So the first thing you've got to realize is that you can do more and you can work more efficiently and work better if we improve your capacity to concentrate. And that's the big challenge that everyone has in the current society, Randy, is concentration is a very difficult thing. And guess what? I experienced this as well, right? If I don't put my phone on the bookshelf over there when it's time to zero in and do an hour of focused work, then I'm going to get distracted. And so we would want to examine your life, take an assessment of what's your work rate like, how much time are you spending on your phone in front of Netflix doing other things, and then determine, okay, the kinds of work that we want to increase your capacity on, how much more time can we find? And then what strategies are we going to employ to keep you from being distracted? But I promise you, almost anyone, we can carve out large chunks of time just by removing this distraction that we've all got in our lives now, which is just like too much information, and it's too convenient, too darn convenient with these phones, you know?
It is. It's one of those things that I really laugh about, because you can find yourself on social media and you sit there and you're like, I just scrolled, and then before you know it, minutes have gone by, maybe even an hour, and you're like, what did I just do? Did I just waste time? So it sounds like there's should be some type of focus effort on moving towards getting everything in place that you need to start to say, all right, what are we going to work on now? Now, how does a particular focus time look for you? I've heard different things, whether every 20 minutes, every 15 minutes. How does that look in what you share with your clients?
Yeah, great question again, because, you know, this is going to be unique per individual, right? Because some people have the capacity to concentrate for longer. And I definitely don't want to be ageist here, and I don't want to throw the young people under the bus, right? But they have a lot more, let's just say, like, I've got a 22-year-old and a 17-year-old, Randy, and they've been influenced by their phones and social media much more than I was growing up, right? So I wouldn't want to start them with a 90-minute concentration block right out of the gate. For them, I'd probably look at more like 20 to 30 minutes. So what we would simply do is time block, right? So if you want to work on a side hustle, or you want to write a book, or you want to get started with an online business, we would just say, okay, how much time do we want to dedicate to this per week? 5 hours, 7 hours, 10 hours, and then we time block it. We put it in the calendar and then employ certain strategies, like the phone goes over on the bookshelf. We don't answer to a spouse, or we let a spouse know that we're going to be in our office or at the kitchen table doing our work at that time, and we start to do it that way. Now, the other method that I am a huge fan of is setting work that needs to be done either on a daily basis or within these work windows, and we set that as a mandatory, obligatory amount of work. So it must get done. So we want to say, if you're writing a book, you've got to write 2 draft pages of the book in this session, or 5 pages. Or if you're starting an online business, you need to hit a certain metric, like researching, tools that you're going to use for your business, or write copy for your website or your blog, whatever the case may be. But we set these as goals that are mandatory. So you can't stop working until they're done. So I've really done this in my life, like launching the coaching business, because guess what? I have a very involved career already that requires 40 to 50 hours per week. And then between my work on Instagram promoting my coaching business plus the coaching itself, we're probably looking at about another 30 hours of work per week. So doing all that work, I've got to be really efficient with my time. But I'll tell you, one of my favorite secrets is I can't go to bed until I'm done that day's work. And so that means sometimes, Randy, it's 10:30 p.m. and I'm exhausted, but I still have 5 messages to get out. So I'm doing the 5 messages before I go to bed, and there's no negotiation.
I like that. And that means that you have committed to yourself to be able to do that particular work. You're making sure that you're kind of moving forward and moving in that direction. It sounds like it's kind of a place where you start to figure out what is your path of what you're looking to do at this moment, and then focusing and removing your distractions. And
Yes.
you begin to have a place where at least you've kind of set up that time in that work environment. Now, the question I have is, typically we find also that when you're trying to do something and you're trying to improve yourself, is skill sets. What do you share with your clients on how they should improve their skill sets and where they should focus? Because today there is so much out there. If I'm trying to be an influencer, there could be so many different things I could look at. What are ways to start to hone in and on exactly what you should start doing?
You bet. Yep. So I think the first thing to be aware of, right, is that as people, all of us have the same primary purpose. Okay? Your purpose, my purpose, everybody that's watching or listening, your purpose is to build the best version of yourself. So that's what you're on this planet to do. Once you've done that consistently and effectively, your secondary purpose will become more evident to you. And that is generally going to be in some form of service to others, because you are going to, fill your own cup up and then be able to serve others. But it starts with you. And so the very first skill sets that we want to introduce are the ones that allow for the fulfillment of this purpose. So we're going to want to eliminate negative vices that hurt you in some way. So this is things like drugs, alcohol, pornography, distraction, other things that just waste our time and erode us in some way, that may be pleasurable in the moment, but over time have a downside to them. They distract us, they blunt us in some way. So we're going to start there. Then we're going to focus on the new habits that actually support this purpose, right? So that means getting the diet on track, getting exercise on track, reading positive information to help us get a positive frame of mind first thing in the day. And there's some other things that I introduce as well. But those are the primary skill sets, Randy, that I'm going to want my clients to begin to adopt. Once they do that, and once they build some momentum, we can start looking for what's that secondary purpose. Is it to become a coach? Is it to start a business that serves people? Is it to advocate for marginalized groups or animals or something like that? And once that becomes evident, then we can focus on more of the skill sets that may be appropriate for that particular secondary purpose. But it starts with the individual. So I always start my coaching engagements with that. Where are we lacking? Where do we need to focus on you to build you up as much as possible?
That's really fantastic. Of course, I love that. We're talking about purpose and what exactly were you born for? What were you manufactured for? How do you move forward? Because to me, in order to understand what you're going to do, you need to understand kind of who you are. And you've kind of laid out a nice way for us to start that process of looking at ourselves and saying, okay, what do I need? And then from there, you can almost do a gap analysis and say, what skills do I need now? Because I have some of this stuff that's innately me. Now I'm going to go and do this.
Yes.
So,
and
yeah, go ahead.
sorry, I was just going to say that. And that's the thing. Once we start demonstrating love to ourselves, like this is something that I think, we've all heard the analogy, and maybe we catch ourselves from time to time being extra harsh on ourselves for a mistake or something, right? We want to really flip the script and get an active form of self-love happening. And that comes through action, right? Eliminating the negative actions, introducing the positive ones. And then over time, clarity is the gift, Randy. Clarity of what I'm meant to be doing. What are my innate skills? And what are the ones that maybe need a little bit of building? It'll all become very, very clear when you're doing a great job of loving yourself. So that's my message. I want people to show themselves love through how they live their lives and their daily actions.
That's interesting you say clarity because I really do love clarity. I think clarity also brings about a peace to your life that where
Yes.
you won't be as confused or uncertain about a lot of things. You can be way more certain once you begin to get more of that clarity. And it's just taking that one step at a time as you're kind of moving in that way. So as we are looking at this personal growth and we are trying to kind of move into better and who we are, how do we begin to create the right habits in our system and our belief system?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I'm glad that you mentioned that actually. And I just wanted to piggyback on what you said about clarity. I could not agree more. You know, when you hear terms like FOMO, you know, fear of missing out and stuff like that, I think that's a person that's a little bit not on their path. Once you get on your path, you're content, you know, and that's really our goal is we want you content with your simple life. It could be very simple. My life's very simple, and I don't have that wandering eye that I maybe had as a younger man of maybe the grass is greener over here or over there. No, I know that I'm on my purpose, and I derive tremendous satisfaction from just walking those steps each and every day. And that's what we want people to have is just by living your life, you've got that clarity on how you should be living. And you know, so to your question, I think really it comes down to introducing, in my opinion, it's a very strong morning routine, and it's not overly complex. But I'll sort of tell you the key components that I think really set someone up for success, okay? Step number one is wake up a little bit earlier than you're comfortable waking up. So you don't need to wake up at 3 a.m. or 4 a.m., whatever time you're waking up now, carve out a little bit more time, drop that by 30 minutes or 45 minutes, 60 minutes if you can. That's step number one. I know you're going to be tired for a few days, but if you just commit to the early wake up, I promise what will happen is you'll start going to bed a little bit earlier, you know? So that's what you have to do. Go to bed a little earlier. Don't sleep in a little bit later. But that's my recommendation, by the way, for anyone that says, I'm not a morning person. I said, look, if you just commit to the wake up time, trust me, you're going to go to bed earlier and you'll become a morning person. So little earlier than you're comfortable doing. The first thing I would love for people to do is get a positive quote book. So that could be, if you're a religious person, something that's got positive religious quotes in it. Or for myself, I'm into Stoicism, so a Stoic book. And just read for 5 minutes. 5 minutes is all it takes to prime your mind and put you into a positive frame of mind. The next step is to do something I call a regret reflection. So I believe the feeling of regret is literally God giving us messages about what needs to change in our lives. It's a communication. And he does that through this experience that we have. Like, regret is not a choice. It's just a feeling we have, right? I shouldn't have talked to my sibling this way, or I shouldn't have lazed around or scrolled on my phone for so long last night, right? And it's like, that's just a message. And that's your guideline for today. Improve on that little thing today. So do a short reflection where you just assess the previous day and see what the guidance is from God. And then some form of exercise. And again, everyone's going to be different. If you're a person that's obese or way out of shape, it can be a light walk, you know, to start. If you're someone that's in better shape, go to the gym. But let's get the blood pumping in the morning. And that's it. If you could just introduce those steps into your life, Randy, that is a lot of big self-love wins first thing in the day. That's going to set someone up to keep that momentum going and start feeling a lot of pride in themselves.
Yeah, I've always heard that the idea is just to have some type of routine. And if you have that routine, then that provides you with some wins early, especially if you're starting in the morning with it. And most of all, that you can get to a place, if you do it one day, great, but it's the consistency that makes it what it makes it powerful. It's almost like compound interest, right? The more you do it, the greater success and more exponential it ends up becoming. And I think that's just awesome to be able to say, hey, I'm going to do these things. And before you know it, it produces a lot in my life that I would have never expected.
I love that compound interest analogy because you're right. It's like at first it's incremental gains, but then all of a sudden it's like, phew, it's you know, it's incredible. And also that self-belief and trust of like, I'm a person. I like, you know what I like, Randy? Like, people may not enjoy waking up to the alarm in the morning, but there's something about taking control in the first second that you're conscious in a day. Like, I'm getting up now. I'm choosing to do that for me, and I'm going to take some steps for me. I think that is a beautiful thing for people to take command of first thing in the day. Then you've got the rest of the day to give to others, to your children, to your, community, to your job, right? But take a little time for you first thing. It's a beautiful thing, and it'll really set your life in a positive direction.
Yeah, and you're just talking a small amount of time, at least initially, and by giving yourself that time, I think you also put the right priorities in place, because one of the things that I think sometimes people get so immersed in is that they were trying to help somebody else, but they forgot that they need to help themselves first before they can help somebody else. Because if you put yourself on the right place, then you can show up as that 100% person versus the 50% person that you may be showing up if you don't give yourself the time to grow and be that person that you need to be. I want to go back to one thing you said, and you talked about that regret. And I always think of my car. My car has all of these great instruments on it, and sometimes the check engine light comes on. And most of the time, if the check engine light comes on, I'm like, I better check that out. That sounds like something maybe close to what regret might be in your life. What do you think about that?
Yeah, 100%, and you can choose to ignore it. I mean, you can, right? But it's at your own risk if you do that. And that's the thing. I think that for a lot of people, we don't actually think about the things that we regret. We just kind of push them down, right? But I think that analogy is a good one. You can get away with that for a few thousand miles, right? But if you do it for much longer than that, there's going to be an event, right? Something's going to happen that is going to be, and my feeling is that, again, God, the universe, source, is trying to give you hints at ways that you can improve your life, and then it's up to you. Like, I believe we have free will in this world where we can ignore those signs, but then the signs are just going to get louder, and it's going to be, maybe if you wake up with a hangover, it's like, that's not that healthy. Maybe I should slow down or stop the drinking. Well, if you keep going down that path, who knows? Maybe you're going to get a DUI, or worse, maybe you're going to get in an accident, or worse, maybe you're going to hurt someone, right? And so I think the more we can plug into trying to identify, like, what are those messages, and am I learning and following them, the better. And the sooner you can do it, the better as well. So yeah, get on that path. And for me, it's a daily practice. I think for the best people in the world, Randy, it's moment by moment, right? The moment you even have a bad thought, or you speak in a way that you're not happy to someone else, you realize it and say, okay, I'm going to change that. But at the very least, once per day is a good time to do it.
Yeah, that sounds really great. And then you also start to build your mindset and change how things are. What are your thoughts on moving towards a growth mindset? And we know sometimes that our mindset is really the thing that may be really either holding us back, causing us to be stuck. Maybe we are in a place where we are repeating patterns of thought and things that we've been doing. And how do you get to a growth mindset where you can begin to break out of the other mindsets that may keep you on a path that you may have been circling on or cycling through for years?
For years. Yeah. I love that question, because you're right. It is a mindset issue. So that's the first thing, is that everything in your life about how you operate it's mindset. And certainly there are challenges. Like, again, I had a physical ailment. Well, I wasn't able to think my way out of that problem, but I was able to stay determined to find a solution and keep, trying to find new service health practitioners to help me solve that issue, which I was finally able to do. But you said something before, Randy, that I think ties into this question really nicely, which is around beliefs. And my coaching model, starts with getting yourself on track, but then it moves into your desires for how you want to serve in the world. Once we've identified what those desires are, the next thing we do is we look at the belief system. And beliefs really fall into two categories. They're either supportive or they're hindering. And so what I get my clients to do is write down a list of all of their supportive beliefs and all of their hindering beliefs. And that exercise is really valuable because you start realizing like, wow, I've got a block around money, or I've got a hindering belief around confidence in myself. And then it's as simple as once we've identified what those hindering beliefs are, we can actively turn those around. So we just re-script them. And instead of, money is only for, selfish people, we can switch that to money is a byproduct of serving the world, right? And then I have my clients read through that list on a consistent basis to begin to embed the new belief system. But that's how to do it. We've all got these limiting beliefs, sometimes from our parents or from where we grew up or school system or who knows, right?
Yeah.
But we got to just identify them. That's really the step number one.
Yeah, and then as you identify them and you, like you said, we begin to reframe and rescript those items, it'll allow you to get to a place to say, I want the items that will support me, that will allow for me to grow, allow me to become where I'm looking to do. So as we are moving into this direction, how do we actually define what we want to do? Because I think that a lot of people, like you said earlier, they may be wondering and not really on target. And so, of course, I played darts many times. But if you miss the bullseye, you miss the bullseye. What's making people miss the bullseye, and how can they overcome that?
Yeah, boy. Well, the first thing I'll mention is that I'm 51 years old or young, however you want to look at that. So I've, been through many cycles in this life. And some people, I think, have ultra clarity at a really young age about what they're meant to do and what they're supposed to do. I was not one of these people. So as I mentioned, career-wise, I didn't know what to do. I bounced around different jobs. I got into sales and I had a real aptitude for it and I found it fun and challenging. And so I pursued it, right? But ultimately, it never really scratched that itch for me that I couldn't even identify. So all I can say to people is, number one, prioritize yourself and love yourself. That's step number one. And the more you can do that and the more effectively you can do that, you'll get that clarity. And then through that clarity, the answers will begin to come to you. So it wasn't, I tried some different things, Randy. I started a blog and I started writing a book and, I volunteered for different organizations. I headed up a volunteer organization in my town. And all of these were good things, but they weren't what I was meant to do. It wasn't until I truly began to love myself and turn my life around physically that I got clarity that I'm meant to coach people. So, that's what I've learned. I'm not saying it's necessarily correct, but that's certainly what I've learned in my journey.
And it's interesting because I have found as well, and I share this with my children and I share it with everyone that I meet, is experiment or iterate, and then you will find out whether or not this is something that you like or something that you don't like. And it's fine to find a lot of things that you don't like, but eventually you'll find out what you do like or what you were really born to do, and that's easy in your life to do. So, Josh, this has been so much fun. We are getting close to the end. I love to ask this question of all my guests. And this question is, what are 3 things, now that you have shared all of this great information, that someone should do today to begin to change their lives so they can be able to produce on purpose? Tell our audience, what are your 3 things that you would share with them?
Okay. So, and again, this is going to be in keeping with the theme, of what we've spoken about already. But the first thing that I want people to do is to start waking up a little bit earlier. So that's step number 1. And if you're already doing that, great. You don't need to wake up earlier if you're already on purpose waking up at a certain time. If so, that's great. Number two, I want you to start training and working out in the gym or at home. If you're someone that's already doing this, I want you to commit to going with a little bit of a higher level of intensity, because we always want to be pushing the intensity. And you asked the question before, Randy, about growth, like a growth mindset. And I think we need to have a growth mindset across the board in life. So everything that we're doing, we're trying to bring a little bit more into that each and every day. So if you're someone that's working out and maybe you've plateaued or stagnated, push a little harder, find another level. And then the third thing is, and I know this is going to seem a little bit extreme, but we talked a little bit about food challenges that people have. The number one thing you can do to get on top of your food challenges is to start tracking the foods that you're eating so that you get a sense of how that is impacting your health. So you don't need to do this for your whole life, but get a calorie counting app, in the App Store. You can buy a really good one for $30 a year and start tracking your food. And you'll be really surprised to see what foods have a lot of calories, what foods may be negatively impacting your health. And if you want a real hack, hire a coach that can help you in interpreting those results, and maybe give you a game plan or a framework that you can follow to get the body of your dreams. But this would be my sort of first series of guidance or advice to people to start, because once you can really get yourself into good physical and mental health, everything else is gonna lead from there.
Yeah, there's an alignment there, and if we begin to move in that direction, and just little things starting off and moving forward, it sounds like you can make some very huge strides in everything that we do. Josh Flower, thank you so much for coming on. Can you share with the audience how they can get in touch with you, and how they can connect with you and you can help them out?
You bet. And, thanks again, Randy, for having me on the show. This has been so much fun. The best place for people to go. So I don't have a product that I'm trying to sell or that I want you to, sort of sign up for. But what I would encourage you to do is, if you like, what you've heard from me, follow me on Instagram, because I believe in living my program. So every day on my Instagram story, you'll see one fresh post per day, either a lifestyle post, an exercise post, or me talking to the camera. And I post on my stories all day long so that you can see what time I'm waking up, what I do in the morning, how I execute my morning routine, and little nuggets that I share throughout the day, the things that I'm eating. I find that this is a really good way for people to get in touch with what my program looks like and decide if I'm the kind of person that could be a catalyst in their lives. Because this is a very personal decision, right? You're going to vibe with me or not. So the best place to find out is just check me out on Instagram, and my profile, you can find me there, is at instagram.com/Josh Flower and then the number 1. So Josh Flower 1.
Josh, thank you. And yes, everyone take a look at going out to Instagram, checking out Josh Flower and how he can help out. I mean, he has provided some great information for us to really help transform our lives and to move into a direction to help us do better, whether it's the waking up a little earlier in the morning. I like to do it because, my children and my wife, they're not up, so I can go and read and do it. Yes, it's all about me. And being able to move in that direction and taking those small steps when it comes to exercising and trying to take a look at what are you eating and taking that all in, and then making those steps to move forward and identifying the areas in your life that are distracting you or not allowing you to move forward. So my encouragement is definitely take a listen back to what we talked about earlier and what Josh said, and always look at how we can kind of move forward and how we can become better and how we can improve our mindset and our belief systems, and most of all, that we all can produce on purpose.